This episode is brought to you by Amazon. Sometimes the most painful part of getting sick is the getting better part. Waiting on hold for an appointment, sitting in crowded waiting rooms, standing in line at the pharmacy, that's painful. Amazon One Medical and Amazon Pharmacy remove those painful parts of getting better with things like 24/7 virtual visits and prescriptions delivered to your door. Thanks to Amazon Pharmacy and Amazon One Medical, healthcare just got less painful.
If you're a maintenance supervisor for a commercial property, you've had to deal with everything from leaky faucets to flickering light bulbs. But nothing's worse than that ancient boiler that's lived in the building since the day it was built, 50 years ago. It's enough to make anyone lose their cool. That's where Grainger comes in. With industrial-grade products and dependable fast delivery, Grainger can help with any challenge, from worn-out components to everyday necessities. Call, click Grainger.com, or just stop by. Grainger, for the ones who get it done.
You're listening to Achtung, Millwall, broadcasting from the beautiful South Birmingham. Accept no substitute.
Good morning, dear listeners. Welcome to this Hull City preview ahead of tomorrow's lunchtime fixture versus Hull City in the Championship. Joining me to chew over the cud of that and a few other news items of the week, plus a fixture from the past, is the man himself, Mr. Neil Fissler. Welcome, Neil.
Hello, mate. How are we? Long time.
Long time no see. You've been a busy boy. You're in the midst. Well, apart from your rugby interests, it's you're doing a book on the 61-62 season, Millwall season.
I am just to really round off the series that we released about 18 months ago. The season to remember. Yeah. I was trying to get it done for Christmas, but unfortunately, you know what it's like. It just didn't happen. So. Midway through that, it'll come out sometime this year, and if anybody's interested, quite an interesting season. I didn't really know.
Fourth division champions, weren't we? Fourth or promotion from the fourth division, was it that season? 61.
Yeah, it was. To my mind, it's Millwall's forgotten. It's Millwall's forgotten championship because it's never really spoken about. Obviously, the back-to-back promotions in the mid-60s, the near miss that was your first ever season. The promotion from Division 3 in the mid-70s, and then, of course, you come into the fantastic 80s and even the more recent ones. But this one's a title-winning season that I don't think it gets a recognition from Millwall and the fans that it really deserves. So hopefully it'll bring back a few memories for those that are old enough to remember, and maybe an education for those that don't know anything about it.
Good stuff. We'll revisit that when the book's published. We'll be talking about that some more. But it's been quite a busy news week, one way and the other, Neil. Obviously, Monday night, strange kickoff time, 7:30 on a Monday night, but there we are. The old floodlight fixtures reserve fixtures used to have those, didn't they? 7:30 Monday night times. But we progressed in the FA Cup over Dagenham. Quite a routine win, I thought, Neil. I mean, a remarkable goal from Mihailo Ivanovic to open the account, and some decent strikes by Casper De Norre, and then, of course, the emergence of Reece Bangura-Williams. But overall, quite a routine win for the Lions, which is quite refreshing. We don't always we make heavy weather of non-league opponents from time to time, don't we? I'm thinking back to the classic days of Slough and Woking and the like, you know.
Yeah, funnily enough, just as another plug for my book, forthcoming book, Monday nights is when we used to play. We played a lot of Monday night games.
Right,
in that 61-62 seasons. But yeah, no, I think you're right. Talk about heavy weather. If you go even further back, you come to the infamous game against Worcester City that we lost, and I think Worcester went on to play Liverpool that season. There were all kinds of things around. But no, you're right. It's one of those banana skins. You only had to look to Sunday afternoon to see the trouble that Tottenham had in disposing of Tamworth. To see that these games, they're no win games, really, in many respects, aren't they? Yeah, you expect that you're going to hand out a spanking. You don't. And then if you win 1-0,
it's disappointing, isn't it?
yeah, and it's just no win, really. It's just no win. Yeah, we just really want to get through it in 90 minutes with no injuries, no problems, and you're just happy.
Yeah, I mean, I was struck by Tamworth. Obviously, that was one of these. It's not plastic; it's an artificial surface, 4G, 3G. I can never remember what they're called. But if you form your team up basically to sit behind the ball, even the best Premier League sides, and Tottenham probably are very expensive, but they aren't the best Premier League side by a long stretch. But anyone will. You've set them a problem, and that was striking on Sunday in the FA Cup, and to some extent against Dagenham, Neil, because they're a moderate National League side, but still, if you pull everyone behind the ball and make it difficult, it's not going to be easy for any professional side. And I thought we did really well. They had one scuffly moment where they put the ball into our box and it hit a shin or two, and I think the rebound shot was fired into the ground, and Lucas Jensen took it straight forward enough.
Yeah,
But otherwise,
you bobbled
nothing.
around, didn't it?
Yeah, they didn't trouble us, and you create chances at the other end. You only need one to win the game, and I thought it was a pretty routine win. And an away fixture at Leeds. We'll see what time of the day, what day of the week that gets played on. I imagine that might be another Monday night game or something like that to make it awkward for the travelling public. But we'll see. But progression in the FA Cup.
Yeah, but the one good thing was that Alex Neil got to see what we've got below the
level,
11.
Right? Yeah.
He got to see, and we got to see a very promising young player come on and score. That was a fantastic moment. Great goal,
wasn't it?
And his celebration was something else to behold.
We had his family in the stadium, didn't he? So he's gone over to see his relations, and fantastic.
Yes, somebody made the point. It's a shame that it wasn't in front of a full ground, but hey, but those are the things. I don't think he'll be that worried about it. He'll just remember.
He won't. You're not going to fill up the den.
Debut,
you're not going to fill up the den playing Dagenham, Neil, are you? It's not going to happen. I think the lower tiers only open for the game, and I suppose you filled that bit up of the lower tier. There was some empty seats still, so it's just it is what it is nowadays. The FA Cup third round, unless you're playing a big fish, it just doesn't have the same impact that it used to. It's sad but true. I wish it wasn't so, but that's just how it is nowadays, isn't it?
Yeah, well, absolutely. I think that when they killed off replays, it just lost a little bit of its sparkle. I know they're trying. The latest proposal is that they scrap extra time and go straight to penalties.
Because that's where Tamworth, they got away from Tamworth, didn't it, in extra time, where the fitness and the endurance of the Premier League side will probably tell. So straight to penalties would still reduce it as a competition, but it does make sense in terms of giant killing. You got a 50-50 chance.
Yeah, well, that's until Manchester City and now Pep go out on penties to some National League team, and then they'll
tour Saudi Arabia or something.
But they want another rethink, won't they? As soon as one of the big six, or so-called big six, something happens to them, there'll be another rethink, won't there? And well, I don't know. Well, in many respects, I just wish that they would scrap the League Cup.
That would be the most, and go back to something of the normality of the old FA Cup system.
Basically, it's. I don't think anybody's that interested in the League Cup, Carabao Cup, whatever you want to call it.
No.
Could you bring the FA Cup earlier rounds forward by maybe playing the Vase or the Trophy later in the season to allow the FA Cup to be more condensed, and then maybe you could have the third round before Christmas? Maybe something, I don't know.
No, they need to do something. I do agree. The league, the Carabao Cup, Football League Cup, is largely a dead duck. Few of us bother about it unless it gets to the late rounds when maybe excitement brews. But for the most part, it's treated as a training routine or an inconvenience, and that's the reality of it. I've often thought that that must be the most axable competition if we're going to keep the Premier League sides on side, which we mustn't we, listeners? And at least that does give the FA Cup a chance of something of its former glory, but we'll see. We'll see what we get. Big story of the week, obviously, is the ongoing transfer of Romain Esse, seemingly now to Crystal Palace. There was talk, Neil, briefly of Bournemouth being interested, but the latest reports for Fabrizio Romano, who is our Italian correspondent, says that the Crystal Palace deal is going ahead. So that does seem to be a run. I mean, a club record deal. I can't help but feel it's a fantastic deal from the Mill perspective, being realistic.
Yeah, you have a look on Hoff and X and Facebook. They just don't. Some people just don't get it, do they? It's okay. I know the release clause doesn't kick in until the summer, so I do wonder if we've just accepted the first bid for him.
Maybe
I would like to. I would like to have squeezed a little bit more out of them, but I think we have to be realistic. We can't moan at where he's going. Okay, it's to some people. Yeah, well, some people claim that Crystal Palace are an insignificance to
Premier League insignificance of a Premier League budget,
Yeah, and then they moan that we're selling them, but I think we need to be honest. He isn't going to be there long.
No.
I think he views Crystal Palace as a stepping stone, isn't it?
Career.
And that's
Absolutely.
the way that we should.
Yeah.
Yeah, but that's the way we should look upon it. He goes to Crystal Palace. They add a little more value to him. Yeah, but they polish him off to what we've already started. We earn £15 million or £14.5 million, and then he'll play 18 months, 2 years for them.
Yeah.
And then they'll sell him on.
Somebody else.
Yeah, hopefully at a decent profit, and then we earn out of that. It's a winner. This is how this business model starts.
Yeah.
It's how Millwall keep their annual losses to something manageable.
Yeah.
And hopefully, Steve Gallen and the recruitment team go out and find the next Romain Esse or the next two Romain Esses, and we reinvest whatever money the Berylson family decide to give us in one or two more promising players that we can add value to and sell on. It's the start of a business model, and it's a business model that it served other clubs well.
Absolutely.
And the more you do it, the more you can afford, and hopefully it gets you to the promised land, because you're not going to get into the promised land realistically doing it the way that we do it. Being too loyal to players that you have a look at our squad. There's a lot of dead wood.
Well, we've hung on too long to one or two players, Neil, haven't we?
Yes. Yeah, we have.
It's funny. We'll come back to Tom Bradshaw in a moment, but just before Neil and I started speaking, listeners, I was just having a look at Tom Bradshaw's career, and his high point as a goal scorer for us was the 22-23 season. This slightly had gone out of my head, Neil, but he got 17 goals in that 22-23 season, closely pursued by Zian Fleming. And the reason I'm saying that is that, that Zian was a player where we had the kind of hint that Burnley were interested. We probably hung on to Zian probably a touch too long. And the reason that I say that, as we may, we could find with Romain if we were playing difficult with him, would be that the player loses heart. And you don't, the second version of Zian Fleming was nothing near the 15-goal striker midfielder that we had in that 22-23 season. So there's the risk that the player fades slightly as a consequence of being denied this big money move. So I think it's, I take your point about hanging on to the summertime. I get that, but you're not maybe not gaining so much if the player then isn't quite as fully on board as he might have been otherwise. And I think it is a business model. The first time we do it, which is the first time now with Romain, it's going to feel a bit painful, especially going to Crystal Palace. Who doesn't feel that? But that's how we've got to move forwards. The other thing to say, Neil, is that this business model being a selling club, if you like, that's always been Millwall. Millwall's always been a selling club, just not been done as a policy.
Yeah.
With a view to making it into the purpose of the club, if that's the right expression. We've always sold talent. The first memory I had was us selling Gordon Hill, what probably was not, was not big money by what the value acquired. So we've always done it. It's at least now we have a plan and a grid that we're working to. It's going to be an interesting period ahead for us, and I think it'd be nice to get this deal closed. Actually, it just seems to be dragging out slightly, doesn't it?
Yeah, I think the problem has been, SA's agents have been trying to get a realistic, or what they feel is a realistic release clause, inserted into his Crystal Palace contract. I've seen figures of £40 million mentioned,
right,
which for us isn't great. I'd much rather it was in the 50-60 million pound range with the same as one or two of the other players there. But we can't be beggars about all of this, can we?
No.
Or choosy about all of this. We just have to sit back and just wait, really, don't we?
Well, we do. It's the first step on the ladder of this new business model, and it's always going to be the hardest one that we have to get across.
Well, it is, and we just have to concentrate now on bringing the next 2 or 3 through. We need Dan Kelly to develop.
Yeah.
Mihailo Ivanovic. We need him.
Femi Aziz. I mean, we even
Femi Aziz,
even the boy.
Superb, doesn't it?
We don't know how Bangura Williams is going to show, but the way he ghosted past that Dagenham defender, who I accept, listeners, is lower league, national league level. So we're not talking. We've got to keep that in mind, but it still takes real skill and pizzazz to get past any player. Like they're not there. It might as well have been me standing out there, Neil. The amount of resistance that bloke put up, and it was just wonderful to see it. So who knows? Early days for the boy, but it's good to see. Good to see players starting to, and I think someone made the point the other day. I think it might have been Simon on Hedgepig on X made the point that seeing SA sign the contract with us and then getting the kind of value that we're getting for him will be an enticement for these boys in the system, the under 21s, the 18s, and so on, because they can see a pathway where that could be them too. So it's all good. I think it's quite quite hopeful.
I'm going to make the same point. Yeah, well, I was going to make the same point. You've got a player who blows hot and cold in a Marco.
Yeah.
Who's obviously got a bit of talent there.
Yeah.
And he's close to SA or Romain. And does the penny now drop with him?
Yeah.
That actually this could be me next. If I pull my finger out and get on with it,
do the work. Yeah.
And it's well, it's also something that the club can use when they're going to the parents of some of these players, and they can say, "Hold on a minute, well, look at SA."
Yeah, absolutely. It's an example. Yeah.
We came in. He's only had half a season.
Yeah. I mean,
wasn't he really? A year. But let's be honest. He's only been a regular for about a year, hasn't he? And
he's clearly got talent, but he's also got the problem of being faced with opponents now that are doubling up on him, and he'll find that maybe in the Premier League the defending is more sophisticated. So he's got, he's still got learning to do. So I think we're getting a good deal. I understand the pain of people on House of Fun and on X, as you say, but we've got to be realists here. If it brings in other players to strengthen a squad that desperately needs it, then it can only be a good thing, can't it? That's how I'm looking at it anyway. Neil, we're going to take a very, very short advertising break, and after the jingle, Neil will be back to talk about Tom Bradshaw. Stay tuned.
The last thing you want to hear when you need your auto insurance most is a robot with countless irrelevant menu options. Which is why with USAA Auto Insurance, you'll get great service that is easy and reliable, all at the touch of a button. Get a quote today. Restrictions apply.
USAA. Achtung, Millwall.
Welcome back, dear listeners. Neil, Tom Bradshaw, a fine servant for our club, and a guy who's moved on this week, listeners, to Oxford United to rejoin Gary Rowett. And I was just looking at his career for us, and he had a bit of a reputation for working hard but not scoring the goals, but that's not always been so. I mentioned already the 22-23 season, which was his high watermark for us, 17 goals he scored that season. That had gone out of my head, but he played out too often for me in a thankless one man striking role when he begged the second striker alongside him, and then we would maybe have seen more goals from him. He's clearly got it in him. He's proven that, but he was always slightly misused or used for a purpose that didn't suit him. How did you see him,
mate? I think he was a victim of this mentality in English football. Of anything that wanker Pep does is the way forward. Yeah, we can see that I really do not.
You do rate him, don't you? You do.
Yeah, and it just seems to me that he wasn't suited to the role that we wanted him to play.
You used him as a target man.
Yeah, he might actually have got away with it at other clubs that don't sort of launch the ball forward that actually play it forward.
Yeah.
Because it's actually easy in Millwall way. We tried to play modern football but with a long ball twist.
Our heart's not really in it, Neil, I don't think. It don't really sit right. The modern world don't sit right at the Den, I don't think. But anyway, that's another subject.
Yeah, well, exactly. And I think he's a player, I'll be honest. Well, I think those 17 goals he scored, did he score 2 or 3 hat-tricks?
He got a couple that season, didn't he? Yeah, under Gary Rowett, yeah.
Yeah, and I think he's one of those players that is probably slightly outstayed.
Yeah.
Welcome, so to speak, or his usefulness. His welcome's probably a bit wrong.
Yeah, usefulness, I think, was a better choice. Yeah. I think you're right.
Yeah, but usefulness, yeah.
Yeah.
I think that, yeah, but in many respects, it's a good job we didn't get rid of him when Wrexham wanted him in the summer. Otherwise,
we've had no struggle. It would have been me and you up front, mate, as the Morrison and Gregory up front.
He did very well to come back from that serious knee ligament injury.
He did his leg, didn't he? Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. He's been a decent servant to the club. He's always done well. He's kind of got the Millwall DNA that he runs around. Yeah. He does. Yeah, you know what it's like.
Yeah, effort, maximum effort.
Skillful player in the world down at the Den, but if he doesn't run around,
he's going to get slaughtered.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
but Tom Bradshaw was somebody who ran around, didn't he? And,
he did.
He was a bit of a nuisance.
Yep.
I couldn't ever get made around that beard that he had.
It was a kind of a wazir from the old Middle East. It's like something out of Aladdin, wasn't it?
Yeah, and the old no shin pads. But I think history, but I think history will treat him kindly.
Yep.
In 10, 20, 30 years' time, he will be remembered fondly.
He deserves to be.
It's a very good move for him.
Absolutely.
I think the move to North Wales Hollywood FC would have been slightly better one for him, but I think that Oxford's a decent move. I watched them play Plymouth the other night because we weren't playing, and they look all right under Rabbit, to be honest, and he will get something out of him. He's probably got an 18-month contract, which...
He's 32 years old. It's a good deal at that stage of your career.
Yeah, well, exactly. We weren't going to keep him beyond the end of the season, so he's got an extra year. I think they'll get something out. Yeah, Rabbit will get something out of him. They play a different style of football to us, so I think that all round it's a good move, and 100%. It's a very good move.
Yeah, good luck to Tom Bradshaw. I think every Millwall fan will wish him well. 131 starts, 80 off the substitute bench, so 211 in total, 46 goals. Figures from Millwall history.org.uk, 2018 to 2025 he played for us. So, yeah, good luck to Tom Bradshaw, Welsh international to boot. So on he goes. Neil, the other news this week is an interesting signing. The boy Aaron Connolly from Sunderland, and he's come in this week, I presume, as a result of some of the other moves that seem to be afoot at the moment. Remain essay, perhaps, I don't know. I'm going to play a little clip, and it is only a little clip, and then a voice note message I've had from Glyn Horner. So, if you'll forgive me, I will play, first of all, Aaron Connolly in conversation with Sunderland TV listeners. And then I'm going to follow that with a voicemail from our regular correspondent, Glyn Horner. So first up will be Aaron Connolly speaking to Sunderland TV that I've lifted off the YouTube surreptitiously.
My family, my friends, everything was just failing and falling apart. And when your parents are calling you, you're not answering calls because you know you're breaking the heart. It's time to realize that I've got a problem. There's no price tag or there's no amount of money in the world that can cure it. It's a disease, it's an illness. And I never thought of it like that until I decided that I needed to go to the clinic. And it was the best and worst month of my life, if I'm being honest.
So that's Aaron Connolly speaking very honestly. It was a long interview, listeners, and I looked at it last night ahead of me speaking with Neil today. It's a 20-minute interview. You can find it on YouTube. There was a short clip Sky News did. But I'm going to play now Glyn's voice note he sent me yesterday, which actually put me onto the interview itself, which is kind of an interesting piece to listen to if you get a chance. I'll stick a link in the show notes. So listen to Glyn.
Hi Nick, Glyn here. Just thought I'd leave some thoughts really after the signing of Aaron Connolly and obviously the departure of Tom Bradshaw. I think first of all, I think Tom Bradshaw's move is the right move for him and for the club. He, clearly wasn't going to be first choice. I don't think the fans would have liked that either. So, for him to go to a club where he's wanted and will get game time is great for him, and he deserves that. And I hope for him the move works out and he's successful at Oxford. I heard some rumours that Aaron Connolly had done an interview about some of the troubles he'd experienced, and I took the time to listen to the interview done by Sunderland last year, and it just triggered me to sort of share my thoughts. Really, I think if you look at the type of fan bases that clubs like ours have, pretty much every family in the stadium would have either directly or indirectly been affected by some of the issues that Aaron faced in his early life already, and I'm also reminded of Steve Claridge and some of his addiction issues that he was facing when he joined us, and I think the love that was shown by the fans and the club for Claridge was hugely influential in him getting his life back on track, and he's always spoken very positively about the club's fans ever since then because of that. And he often sort of states that the club pulled him out of a very dark place, and I think Aaron is potentially got, legendary status at the club if he comes in and sort of bonds with the fans in that way as well, and can produce, even a fraction of what Claridge did for us. So yeah, I think, it's maybe right just to sort of understand that this is a very young man who's had a very troubled time. He's clearly very gifted, clearly very talented, but there's a level of maturity now. If you listen to his interview at Sunderland and then the one more recently on Millwall TV, this is a young man with a very old head on his shoulders now, and I hope the fans get behind him. I hope everybody supports him, because we may have a great player there, but there's also a human being there who needs, who needs to feel valued and find his place at work as well. So I'm really hopeful for him. I think he's a terrific player. He sort of comes with a pedigree and a lot of potential. And I, for one, will be rooting for him wholeheartedly. Come on, you Lions.
Thank you, Glyn. Neil, I mean, obviously we're talking about alcohol issues in the case of Aaron Connolly, who was officially announced as a signing a day ago. It's a really interesting interview, as I've said already. And I think Glyn's point that, Mill fans, I think life in general, everyone probably knows someone, might even have had a few touches of alcohol issues themselves. I don't know, but it's an interesting move. I mean, clearly Aaron Connolly's coming to us to try and rehabilitate his career. Just to kind of condense the storyline a lot for listeners who haven't listened to the interview, a really promising player, scored twice. I think it was for Hull City in the Premier League as a Premier League outfit against Tottenham. And basically, as he puts it himself, bought into the hype, started to think he was the next Lionel Messi, didn't do the work, did do the drink big time and whatever else, and finished up pretty much almost on the point of losing his career and losing everything around him and those closest to him. So there it is in a nutshell. Probably the classic story, I suppose, if you can put it that way. Checked into rehab to try and sort himself out. Now here he is at Millwall. We do tend to take in the waifs and strays of the world a little bit, Neil, don't we? How do you feel about signing a player that's kind of coming out of an issue like that? I mean, for me, it's a double hit. I mean, if he succeeds, I think it's going to be a great move for him. If he doesn't succeed, I do wonder what kind of reactions the crowd can generate. So, it's a bit of a double-headed coin in a way, isn't it?
Very, 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 very brave of him to to sign for the club with the most empathetic fan base in the United Kingdom. But no,
our arms are open.
Yeah, but to be serious about it, yeah.
Yeah.
The one thing the Millwall fan base do is we look after our own.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah.
We're very, very supportive of our own. And if he comes down and he puts the effort in and remembers that he's playing for Millwall and that he isn't the next big thing, and he has learnt from that mistake, he will find so much support and so much understanding that it could be an absolutely fantastic move. Don't get me wrong. If he doesn't do that,
it's another side, isn't there?
Yeah. There are people that won't be short of telling him, rightly or wrongly, and reminding him. But I think on the whole, we do look after our own and we do support our own. You only have to see the fantastic work that we get behind with Kelly in the food hub, the Mizzen family. Thoughts with them this week over that awful couple of front pages of a national newspaper.
Seconded. Yeah, absolutely.
And everything else that we support and we get behind, you and my good mate Billy doing the walks in the West Ham shirts.
Yeah.
We do support people. There is that at the club. I think, to be honest, I hadn't even thought of him. Part of me wonders why Sunderland are willing to let him go to another Championship club.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But I think he can come down here and he can do really good things. He can do he's obviously got ability in there. There's a lot of ability there. And if we can tap into that ability, it's, as we've said with other players, isn't it? Well, it's adding value, and maybe he can
Make a
go on
success.
and
yeah,
and actually live out that potential that he showed earlier in his career elsewhere.
I had a look at the replay of the extended highlights of us playing Sunderland just before Christmas, and of course he scored. Listeners, anyone that can remember the Sunderland goal, if not, it's on YouTube, easy to find. He caught a really nice volley from a ball into. They were dominating the first half, and balls into the penalty area, which came out from our defence, and he caught it on the volley from the edge of the penalty and put it away very, very nicely past Lucas Jensen. So you're right, Neil. He's clearly got talent and he's clearly got ability. His career starts in the Premier League and then basically is a bit of a downward slope. I'm going to guess that he would pin that downward spiral on drink and buying into the hype, as he puts it himself, thinking he's a star when unless you do the work, the talent don't show itself. So I think probably, just to touch on your why Sunderland let him go, I think probably he's just never shown his true potential at any of the clubs. He's been around the block. He was struggling, I think, at the bottom of his. There's a phrase in alcoholism, isn't there, that you've hit rock bottom. And he said, I think the rock bottom was when he went to Venezia in Italian Division 2, and he wasn't getting the game out there. So for a player of clear talent not to be featuring in a second division side in Italian football probably was the point where he's decided to get himself get some help, which he did by going into a rehab. Who knows? It's a short-term contract, so I think the risk element from the Millwall point of view is limited. We've got him till May, and with an option to extend on both sides if it's a success. He gives every impression he wants to make a go of it, and I think if we can get the best of him, he's going to be a good striker. He seems to be a player that runs at defenders, which we all love to see. So fingers crossed for him. So it's going to be an interesting one. But hats off to the boy for being so honest. And the 20-minute conversation with Sunderland TV is worth a watch if you're interested in that kind of subject. So we'll see. Aaron Connolly signed for us this week. I expect him to start on Saturday. He should be at that level now. So.
Very
go on.
To see where that leaves Macaulay Langstaff.
Yeah, who wasn't on the bench on Monday night, but apparently with an injury.
Was he injury?
That was the official line. You can never tell with these things, can you? You know, a knock is the easiest thing to get when you don't feature in a squad, or maybe you don't feature in the manager's plans. I don't know.
I don't know. I would have thought that if Harris had stayed, he might have been in a little bit of trouble because I don't think Harris fancied him for one reason or another. No. I think Alex Neil will give him every chance. Hopefully he gives him every chance.
Yeah.
Because I think he showed at times that there is a player there, and yet again we didn't play to his strengths.
No, we didn't. I suppose I'm just struck with the contrast with Mihailo Ivanovic, another player that Harris didn't fancy. Neil, let's be honest. You know, he made his feelings plain with Ivanovic. The difference, I suppose, between Ivanovic and Langstaff is that Ivanovic, by hook or by crook, is getting amongst the goals. He gets himself into places. He's got the tallness to get on the end of crosses. He's got goals. Whereas Langstaff has struggled, and sometimes luck plays its part in a player's career. I don't know. We'll see how that works out. I imagine Connolly's going to be competition for him, so whether that will be the kick up the bum that Langstaff needs or not, I don't know. We'll see. We'll see. One other story that's doing the rounds this week, and I don't really know much about the boy, but we're linked with a Brentford defender, French defender called Tristan Karma. I've had a quick look at his Wikipedia page. This is all I've got on him, listeners. A French player's come to us via Brentford, and he's been loaned out at places like Bristol. He's had a season in League One, and Exeter City, another season with them. So we'll see. I mean, that deal is not closed yet. That's just a deal that's bubbling away. So I don't know him beyond that. I don't know if you know the boy, Neil, or so. Tristan Karma.
Yeah, I think he was recalled from by Brentford.
Yeah,
from that awful place up the expressway. I hope he's had every injection possible and has been deliced, defumigated, and he's put in quarantine for 6 weeks.
That's the fair city of Exeter we're talking about.
Yeah, well, that's Devon's second city that I was used to sit in the train toilets whenever I came down to visit my parents because it always smelt nicer in the toilet.
That's Exeter,
no,
damned. Yeah.
Yeah, well, no, really. You would be serious. Has the makings of a good player. Brentford very rarely sign poor players for their B team or whatever they call it.
Yeah, Brentford B.
I know Bristol Rovers fans were quite happy with him.
Yeah.
Thought he was a decent player. We need something because we can't rely on Hutchinson.
No, it's that point you made earlier on about players that have been around for too long. And I think Sean
Harding,
yeah. Never got started.
Murray Wallace.
Yeah,
they're all players that have to go on at the end of the season.
Yeah,
and it would do him good to come here, play half a season or learn for half a season, because I think we can all agree that Jeff Tendanga won't be around at the start of next season at the club.
No,
he'll be the next taxi off the Millwall selling rank. So he comes in and plays alongside Cooper then, and then we look for somebody else, I guess.
Absolutely. We'll see. We're going to take another short break for any advertising that StreamYard put in. And then Neil and I will be back after these messages with a fixture from the past, Millwall versus Hull City on Saturday. And I've dug out a game from 1966 just to chew over to close our show today. So stay tuned.
Achtung, Millwall.
Welcome back, dear listeners. Now, it's been a long while since Neil and I did a fixture from the past. We're going to rectify that here and now. I've dug out a fixture from 1966. A Millwall win, Neil. Mill 2, Hull City 1, played at Coldblow Lane in front of 14,340. Played on September the 17th, 1966. Goals from Bobby Hunt, and Len Julians, I believe. Let me have a look. I've got a match report here from Sam Bartram, writing for the People, Sunday People. Len Julians, there he is, pictured on this match report. So this is amidst the record-breaking at the time home undefeated run. There were 50 games in. So Sam Bartram writes, Millwall's run of 50 home games without defeat looked in danger when Houghton cracked home a 35-yard goal, but the battling Lions equalised within a minute to win the match, with new boy Bobby Hunt, quickly making himself an Old Kent Road favourite. The goal that really mattered was Mill's first. Tommy Wilson nodded a right-wing cross just inside the post, and Hull keeper McKechnie, making a valiant effort to stop it, gave himself a nasty bang. From then on, I couldn't see Mill losing their grip, for the longer they played, the better they looked. At first, Hull had the Lions worried, with Chilton chasing everything, but both Gilchrist and McCulloch never put a foot wrong. And Mill's counter-attacks, based on high crosses, looked a waste of time against the tall Hull defenders. But it was a different story when Mill played it on the ground. They began finding the way through. A quick break by Hull in reply spread-eagled Mill's defence, and Houghton, running through to a well-timed pass, hit a terrific shot past the astonished Laurie Leslie. Mill had the answer, though. Straight from the restart came Wilson's equaliser, and the pressure steadily built up. Only a brilliant save by McKechnie stopped Ken Jones, who soon after shot wide after Broadfoot had split the whole defence. Hunt was cheered every time he got the ball, saw his first time header crash against the bar. Billy Neal, or Neil as they describe him here, had a shot worth a goal deflected, and Wilson got the ball in the net but was given offside. The crowd roared approval of Millwall's play, but they weren't pleased when Hunt was bundled off the ball as he shaped to shoot from 10 yards and there was no penalty. They must have heard the cheers in the Thames estuary. That's a nice turn of phrase. They must have heard the cheers in the Thames estuary when Millwall got in front. Hunt, with his back to goal, did a continental bicycle kick, Neil. The ball fell for Julians, who steered it in for 2-1. Mill's team, Leslie, Gilchrist, McCullough, Jones, Snowden, Wilson, Broadfoot, Hunt, Julians, Dunphy and Billy Neal. And that game was played on the 17th of September 1966. 50 games without defeat at the time. This was amidst the eventual, was it 59 games eventually when Plymouth finally broke the record? But that's as this game was played, this was an active record-breaking run still in play, and that would only be broken in the end in the 80s by one of the greatest teams ever, Liverpool, who I think went past us in the early 80s, if memory serves. But at the time, this was some huge achievement. This was being unfolding here. Bobby Hunt, Neil, this is a name I hadn't come across that often in the past. I thought I'd mention him. I've lifted your pen picture here of Bobby Hunt. Played for us 50 times, 17 goals between 66 and 68, came from Colchester. A hard-working goal-getter. This is Neil Fissler writing here. Bobby helped Northampton Town into the First Division. I've forgotten that, in the early 60s. After scoring a phenomenal 80 goals in 148 games for Colchester, where he played with his elder brother, Ron. He was the leading scorer when they finished runners-up to Liverpool in their 1962 Division 4 promotion season. We're back at your book again, Neil. Bobby split the fans during his time at the Den, as ever. Nothing changes, listeners, and was sold to Ipswich for a profit. He later had a spell in Colchester's reserve team, worked as the club's development fund club's development fund before holding a similar role at Chelmsford and retiring through ill health, and still lives in Colchester in retirement. Strange how some players make an impact on your consciousness. Before my time, Neil, but I'd never really thought about Bobby Hunt, but he seems to have been quite a player in his day.
Yeah, funnily enough, he's popped up quite a lot in 61-62 because of Colchester were promotion rivals for us that season under Benny Fenton.
Yeah.
And he scored quite a lot of goals. I think I'm right in saying he was voted one of Colchester's all-time great players. Right. Somebody that came down to us, unless you've got a long memory, or you buy one of my books, you're not going to remember him, that, are you? He's somebody who's been forgotten within the annals of history and time. And
yes.
But no, I think it was an era when I think we used to bring players in, especially from the lower divisions, and try them out. Worth a punt, I think is the expression.
But no, 50 games and 17 goals for us, Bobby Hunt. Two other players I've picked out from that side, Neil. Len Julians is I don't know if we've mentioned him on our shows that we've done. We must have done, but not for a while. So I'll just touch on Len Julians. A good striker for Millwall, 140 games, 62 goals. That's not a bad return over 1963 to 67. Came to us from initially from amateur football, Walthamstow Avenue, then Leyton Orient, Arsenal, and finished up at Millwall in 1964, January 64. But he made his name with Walthamstow Avenue. There's an old name from non-league football from the past. And coincidentally, as we played Dagenham and Redbridge this week in the FA Cup, Walthamstow Avenue were one of the clubs that merged together to become Redbridge Forest, that in turn merged in with Dagenham to create Dagenham and Redbridge. So it's a little by-the-by, listeners, for you. A decent striker for Mill, Len Julians.
Yeah, his daughter's quite active, or was quite active on X, Debbie, I think. And great striker. Didn't him and the Poss? Were they around at the same?
I think
they were.
They just kind of joined. I think they were there at the same time, but not quite. But Julian's was prior to Derek Posse, but one linked in after the other, so to speak. He'd also finish up playing in the USA in the Detroit Cougars, or coaching them. Sorry, in the Detroit Cougars in 1967. An entrepreneur,
you're going to say entrepreneur, ran a garage with another former player, Brian Snowden.
And he was in the print with Billy Gray, as well as a community officer at Tottenham. Passed away in 1993 in Southend. Len Julian's a great picture. I mean, that fantastic striped shirt that we wore in the mid-60s. In Neil's book, which incidentally is A to Z of Millwall players, listeners. You cannot do a decent podcast unless you have a copy of Neil's A to Z of Millwall players. I depend on it.
You would put it by the toilet to help with those. With those long moments.
I wouldn't be half the man I am, listeners, without Neil's book to hand, because I wouldn't know half of these players at all. So it's a great assistance to me. The third player I've picked out, and I do remember Laurie Leslie, because when I started going in the early 70s, Neil, he was a coach. He was always in the team photos. And I remember him practicing with Brian King before the game to warm up Kingy, pre-match. But he was goalkeeper, Scottish international goalkeeper, Laurie Leslie. He was with the club for 2 years as a player, and he would come back as a coach in the early 70s. But he came via Adrionians, Hibernians, West Ham, Stoke. And then would move on to Southend. Eventually become a coach at the club. A Scottish international goalkeeper, Scottish Cup finalist with him.
Not sure. Not sure he'd be accepted now for his allegiances with.
It would have barred Harry Cripps as well, wouldn't it? And Terry Hurlock.
And Hurlock and almost anyone.
Yeah.
But I think he bridged the gap, didn't he, between Stepney and King?
Yeah, that's right.
So a good experienced goalkeeper.
Yeah.
I think was he brought him from Stoke from memory. I can't remember how much. Went on to become
15,000
a games coordinator.
Yeah, 15,000 from Stoke.
15,000.
And then he would go on to Southend,
which would have been quite a sum of money.
Yeah.
That would have been quite a sum of money because we like to do things on the cheap, even back then.
Another nice little bumsy for Freddie was it Mickey Purser, because we signed him from West Ham for 14,000, and he moved on to Stoke for. We signed him from Stoke so it was West Ham actually making a profit. They signed him for 14. Stoke got him. We took him from Stoke for 15. Anyway, there we are. I'm losing track of what I'm saying. I might delete that. And after his playing career, he would become a youth coach with Hackney Council and worked as a head of centre at Cardinal Pole School in Homerton, which I used to drive past every day when I was working in Hackney. Listeners, that's a little bit of personal detail there. Big school in Hackney, and it was based there.
You probably saw Laurie Leslie and didn't know who he was.
I was a kid. I was just a kid. He was a craggy-looking goalkeeping coach. I remember Jack Blackman always used to have a little kind of what looked like a rubber pouch of water that would splash onto the injured player when he ran on. And Laurie Leslie was the pre-match coach. He always was in the team photos, but. No, I mean, as a kid, they're just figures that are godlike figures that are in the team, and you don't really know anything about them. So it's only in late.
Never, ever ask Kingy about Jack Blackman. I think, or even any player from that era. I think they've got him some kind of sadist.
I think his solution to everything was to splash water on it and say you're all right, good to go.
Yes, certainly physiotherapy back then was very rudimentary. I think he actually worked for British Rail in some kind of capacity before he
part-time coach.
time with us.
I mean,
Yeah,
there is the cliche, the magic sponge, Neil, but it really is. That really was all it was. He would run on with this, looked like a little rubber pouch of some sort. It was full up with water, and that would go out, and then he would talk to the player and splash some water on it and say, you're good to go. But of course, there's only one substitute back then, so you had to be pretty badly injured to come off.
You will run it off, I think, was the
Run it
expression.
off. No wonder players' careers ended so early back then, wasn't it?
Yeah, just run it off, son. You'll be all right.
Run it off, yeah. I did have to laugh just on the while we're on the subject. I've read out the Sam Bartram's, who was a player in his own right, wasn't he? Sam Bartram, a Charlton player, journalist for the People at the time of this game. There's a separate paragraph entirely here, Neil, which made me laugh. Millwall versus Charlton. The People are saying, in our report of Millwall's match with Charlton Athletic on August the 27th, 1966, it was stated that, quote, at least 6 arrests were made amongst the after-match brawlers, and it took the efforts of 40 policemen at least 20 minutes to achieve that, end quote. These statements were incorrect, says the Sunday People. In fact, no arrests were made, and there were 27 policemen at the match, 27 constables and 2 sergeants. The People is very sorry that his readers were misinformed. So clearly, even then, the club must have complained at the press coverage of trouble at Millwall. So no arrests were actually made.
Minutes to quell the violence.
I don't know how many truncheons got wielded. Quite a few, I would imagine, if they're having a brawl there. But that did make me laugh. Anyway, there we are. That's the daily, the Sunday People. Sorry, of 17th of September, 1966 for you.
I would highly recommend anybody, if they've got Find My Past or the British Newspaper Archive, just to put Millwall into the search bar and read some of these newspapers, because the reporting is a lot better than it is now.
More erudite.
Some of the stories, some of the stories you can come across. Researching 61, 62, I've come across Gillingham missing a train to go up to Barrow, so sought permission from the Football League to fly because they wanted to save themselves. Yeah, they spent £600 to save a £500 fine for not fielding a team and things like that. And there's 1 or 2 Millwall stories in there that I'm not going to spoil.
You're right about the quality of the journalism back then, because I think that Sam Bartram's ex-player, listeners, so he's moved on to football journalism at the end of his career here in this report.
And he still knew people. He still had the ear of managers.
Yeah,
and it was a lot different then. He'd probably pop down to Millwall's training ground or phone the manager at home, and they would tell them what's going on. Yeah, it's not like I saw Arne Slot, that the Liverpool manager, just wouldn't comment on. Somebody asked him a question about the contracts. He says, "I'm not going to talk about contracts in press conferences." And they ask him about the interest of Real Madrid in Trent. I'm not going to talk about a player. Yeah? And you just wonder, hold on a minute, you've got to sell the game. Back then, these newspapers were all powerful. They sold millions and millions of copies.
They did. Very different.
Day of the week. And they knew that they had to promote the game. There was very little television coverage. There would have been probably 1 radio station, not 4 or 5. There was certainly no social media. And so the reporting was a lot better. Okay, 1 or 2, once or twice. It probably went a little bit far, or too far, like the apology that you read out. But just to read some of this stuff and the social problems that you read on the front pages, are just happening now.
Yeah,
as well. Unions fighting, people being unhappy with governments.
Yeah, the same stories carry on and on. It's in different times. Newspapers sold millions, as Neil says. They sold so many newspapers, listeners. They had things called journalist expenses. Do you remember those, Neil? Did you ever come across journalistic expenses, mate? Maybe that's another podcast, another time.
Mate, I'll tell a very quick story. I was shifting on a national newspaper in my early days.
Yeah.
And I claimed my expenses for the week, and was called up before the
editor. Yeah.
Said, we've got a problem with your expenses. I went, oh God. I said, I've claimed everything. Here's the receipts. He said, yeah, you're not claiming fucking enough.
You let the other blokes down. You let the other blokes down.
He said there are sub-editors claiming more than you. Now go away and come back with something
decent.
I said to him, he said, said, how much should I be claiming? So he wrote down a figure. Yeah, but it's more than I'd earned for a fortnight.
That's wonderful. You're not claiming enough. Isn't going to embarrass your colleagues there. So yeah, you got to go and come back with this figure. Great stuff. Brilliant, Neil.
Yeah, but back then the newspapers had more Mickey Mouses and Donald Ducks working for them than Disney.
That's a good moment to leave it. We're at the hour mark. Neil, I want to say a big thank you, mate. Good to have you back. And
superb, mate. We'll
speak
very
again.
Good to be back.
Very, very soon, dear listeners. So I hope you enjoyed that. Till the next edition from Neil Fissler and my good self, it's Arrivederci Millwall. Bye for now.
This podcast is part of the Sports Social Podcast Network.